If you could have an automated servant in real life, what simple task would you give it to repeat over and over again?
Let's roll initiative for this one.
11.
8.
I got a 16. All right, so it looks like I'm going first. Cleaning my room, because I hate doing it so much. And dusting especially. Oh my God, I hate dusting.
Yeah. Mine would be dishes and laundry. Yeah.
Yeah, why did we all went to cleaning? I was like, absolutely. Yeah, like cleaning, like mopping and cleaning the walls and all that stuff that like the dusting that no one ever wants to do and does like every 3 years and then regrets doing it. Like, it's like, I knew this was going to be awful and it is.
You have to like get into like every nook and cranny too. And it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't know.
For
I don't
me,
mind
it's
doing laundry though.
So like monotonous, just over and over. Like I fold this, I put it away, I wear it, I clean it, I fold it, I put it away, I wear it, I clean it. Like I'm over it.
Yeah.
Welcome to the It's a Mimic podcast, where you never know what you're going to get.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get. Today, we're continuing our discussion on constructs in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I'm Kyle, and with me today is Pepperina and Cassie, and this episode is called Constructs, Solemn, Golems, and How to Control Them.
I love you, Kyle, but it's Casey. Remember,
Casey, damn it.
Casey.
Ugh, fuck.
This morning I was like, I wonder if Kyle's gonna remember from last time the pronunciation of my name.
It's because I see your name written down more than I talk to you. So it's just in there, and I don't think I'm ever gonna remember. So please don't take it personally.
I won't. It's the story of my life. I will meet people in person. We're sidebarring now. I will meet people in person, introduce myself as Casey, and then they will like see my names in email. And the next time I see them, I'm Cassie. Like it's a regular occurrence in my life. But yeah.
I'm also just terrible at names too. Like I saw this cartoon once where it's like two people and they meet at a party and they're like, oh, hi, I'm Jason. And then you see the guy, you like grab the name and try to jam it into his head. And then it shows his brain and it's like Otterfax, my best friend's phone number from when I was a kid. And then it just like, he's like, the next panel is, hey, Jason, did you know that otters have a pocket in their armpit for their favorite rocks? And that's what I feel like constantly.
I'll remember, like, if you tell me what your favorite food is, like, I'll remember that forever, but I will not remember your name.
Love that for us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, should we just keep going and let Adam figure out how to edit that?
Yep.
There is no good way to edit that, so I fucking won't.
All right. This is going to be a good one.
Good start. In this episode of the It's a Mimic podcast, this panel of Dungeon Masters is going to finally build a case for why you should be using more golems in your Dungeons & Dragons games.
So you guys excited for this? You ready?
I think so.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how in-depth my Frankenstein research was going to go, because I learned that there's like different stories, and I didn't realize that. So
all right. Did you get like consumed down a deep internet hole?
I was like, this is, and then I told one of my coworkers that I had to research Frankenstein, and he was like, my girlfriend loves Frankenstein. Which version are you doing? And I was like, I didn't know there was different. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. I had to read, I think it was in a university English class, I had to read Frankenstein. And I remember really enjoying it at the time, but I really have no memory about anything that happens in the book, except I felt really bad for Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Like, wow, you had a horrible life.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get into that.
All right, let's jump into a quick info break before we get any further down this road.
We've previously covered quite a bit in our discussion on monsters in 5th edition. For all of those episodes and more, you can follow or subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and dozens of other podcast apps. If you would like to support us, you can donate through the website, check out our store, or join our Patreon and get access to other episodes and series. If you would like to pay for some ad space on It's a Mimic, or just send a shout out to a friend, please reach out to us through our email and website that are listed in the show notes below.
This week on the It's a Mimic podcast, we sit down with another campaign builder episode on the It's a Mimic Patreon, where Tyler and I sit down and talk about boons with a catch, how to hand out interesting rewards to a tier 3 party that enhance the story without sabotaging the players. And then on Friday for the Patreon as well, for the silver adult tier and above, we've got a sequel to this episode actually, where we dig into even more golems that are out there, because they're littered all across 5th edition. But for now, let's get back to the episode.
All right, so to start off this episode, we're going to go over some real life Golem lore. But before I do, I just want to apologize in advance to any Jewish listeners we may have for the names I am no doubt about to absolutely butcher. So, anyways,
It's like you're in an undead episode with us.
I already
try our
butchered
best.
Casey's name, so I mean, so the first mention of Golem, which is a Hebrew word meaning shapeless mass, was in the Talmud, specifically Psalm 123, which talks about the creation of Adam, who is said to be a golem shaped from clay for the first 12 hours of his life, until God gave him a soul by breathing life into him through his nose. What's interesting to note here is that despite its rather enduring legacy, it is only mentioned in the Bible one time. Though the creation of others is hinted at other places and is kind of used as like a story, but they don't really mention any creation of golems. The actual instructions on how to make a golem come from the Sefer Yetzirah, which is the book of formation, a book of Kabbalah mysticism, or more specifically, the interpretations of it made by a number of different rabbis over time, which has produced a number of different sets of instructions for how to create a golem, ranging from inscribing God's name on a formed lump of clay, or inscribing it on a piece of paper and placing it in the golem's mouth or on its arm. Since God is the ultimate creator of life, this is apparently what breathes life into the golem. There are also other instructions like walking or dancing around it, the shaped lump of clay, saying a combination of letters from the alphabet and the secret name of God, where to kill it, you got to do the same thing, but in reverse. So it wasn't actually until around the 16th century that the golem as we knew it began to take form. The oldest known reference to a human creating a golem specifically comes from Chelm, a Polish town, where Rabbi Elijah Baal Shem, who is said to be an incredibly wise and well-educated religious leader, created a golem ostensibly to help around the town and protect their community by forming a mute human-shaped creature out of mud and bringing life to it by inscribing the word emet, meaning truth, onto its forehead. However, he soon found that he may have bitten off more than he could chew by creating this golem, which would follow commands almost too literally. So, for example, if asked to cut down a tree for wood, it would attempt to cut down an entire forest instead. The creature also became larger and larger with each passing day, until one day, the rabbi asked the creature for help removing his shoes. So when the golem bent down, the rabbi wiped a letter away from the word on his forehead, changing emet to met, which now means death. The most famous story involving a golem came from Prague, also during the 16th century, during the Blood Libel, which is one of the many pogroms that Jewish people faced during the Middle Ages, when Rabbi Lo ben Bezalel is rumored to have shaped a man out of clay taken from a nearby river, once again inscribing the word emet onto its forehead. This time, however, the ending is a little bit darker. I mean, the story is a little dark as it is too, but this time the golem went on a rampage, tearing apart the community and threatening innocent lives, until once again, the letter on his forehead was smudged to read death. In terms of D&D lore, golems can be made out of pretty much anything. And by looking through older editions, I do mean anything. There's even a puzzle golem, which was a golem made out of other golems. So regardless of what they're made out of, though, some things remain the same. They are essentially mindless creatures created for the sole purpose of serving their masters, without thought or without question. They do not feel, they have no pity. They are automatons bred to complete simple tasks or act as ogring juggernauts meant to destroy, and are capable of brushing off most physical damage and all but the most potent spells. In order to create one in D&D, one requires a manual of golems, which is set to contain a set of comprehensive illustrations along with instructions for creating a golem of a certain type. So one manual does not fit all golems. You need a specific manual for each different kind of golem if you want to create one. But the first step is to create the body, which requires great skill in whatever artistry is related to the material used. So for a flesh golem, it will require someone with a comprehensive knowledge of surgery. If you're doing a clay golem, you're going to need a great sculptor, etc. The person creating the golem may be able to do this themselves, but more often than not, they will have to recruit someone to help them. Once the body is complete, the creator must infuse the body with a spirit from the elemental plane of earth. So this is just a blank life essence that has not yet had time to form anything beyond existence and the ability to move and obey. This infusion binds it to the golem's body and subjects it to the will of its creator, sometimes through the use of a special item, so maybe an amulet or a ring or whatever. If created in this way, a golem can still be taken over by someone long after its original creator is dead. A golem cannot think or act for itself, and though it can understand speech, it lacks the ability to speak itself. And because of its mindless devotion to its creator, it cannot be reasoned with or tricked with words. While the creator is close at hand, it will perform tasks flawlessly. But if left to its own devices, it will continue to follow the last instructions given to it to the best of its abilities. If unable to complete their given task, a golem may either act violently or just stand and do nothing. If given more than one set of orders at a time, it will attempt to alternate between both of them. Now, because of its constructed nature, it does not require air, food, water, or sleep, nor does it age, allowing it to serve out its purpose even long after the death of its original creator, often guarding sacred sites such as tombs or treasure vaults. So the first golem that we are going to be covering is the clay golem. So clay golems, like their folklore counterparts, are most often created by priests of great faith in order to fulfill a divine purpose. Unfortunately, despite their enormous strength, clay is not exactly the strongest material. As such, when damaged, the elemental spirit that is bound within the golem can break free, sending it into a mindless rage, attempting to destroy anything within its reach until the golem is either fully repaired or destroyed. So these are large constructs with a CR of 9 and understands the languages of the creator, but cannot speak any for itself. It has a sub 15 AC with a relatively low HP for a CR9 creature, but those are more than made up for with its acid, poison, psychic, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks, non-magical attacks that aren't adamantine damage immunities. Oh my god, why was that so hard to say?
That's gonna be a theme because I think every golem has this like a almost identical list. So we're here for it.
Let's all just agree to say adamantine wrong.
Yeah.
We're in it together.
Yeah. Also, along with those damage immunities, it gets immunity to charmed, exhaustion, frightened, paralyzed, petrified, and the poison conditions. This lumbering mass does only have a 20 feet walking speed, but throw in some difficult terrains at the players and, that'll become less of a problem. In terms of its stats, they are pretty terrible, only actually having a positive modifier in strength and con, but those are 20 and 18 respectively, so it's pretty good. They don't get any saving throw bonuses or skills and have a passive perception of only 9, so I wouldn't really use them as guards. In terms of traits, they have acid absorption, meaning wherever it would take acid damage, it instead gains health equal to the damage that would have been dealt to it. It has immutable form, so its form cannot be altered by any kind of magic. It also gets magic resistance, giving it advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects, and its attacks count as magical as well. Its final trait is Berserk, so anytime it starts its turn with 60 health or less, you got to roll a d6. On a 6, it goes Berserk, at which point it will attack the nearest creature to itself. And if no creature is close enough for it to do so, it will instead attack an object, preferably one that is smaller than itself. Once Berserk, it will continue to do so until either destroyed or it regains all of its HP, which I thought was kind of interesting. For actions, it can either make 2 slam attacks, which are a +8 to hit with a 5-foot reach, and 2d10 plus 5 bludgeoning damage. If the target is a creature, it must make a DC 15 con save or have half its HP maximum reduced by the amount of damage taken. If its health is reduced to 0 in this way, if its health is reduced to 0 in this way, it dies. And this reduction lasts until it is removed by a greater restoration spell or better. Its second option for action is it gets haste, which recharges on a 5 or 6, and it gives it +2 to AC, advantage on Dex saving throws, and allows it to make an extra slam attack as a bonus action until the end of its next turn. So honestly, I'm not really a fan of the stat block. Like, I don't understand why the clay golem reduces the maximum hit points on a creature.
Mm-hmm.
And why it requires a greater restoration above everything.
I think what I would say reasoning behind that would be because it is created by a holy person.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I would sort of flavor that. If the clay golems specifically are created by holy people, then they would have the ability to do the life drain.
Yeah, that makes sense. I thought everybody in D&D just had a really severe clay allergy.
They might. Yeah.
And also, why does haste give it extra attack but not double its movement speed? How is it able to dodge better but can't move faster to make up for the 20 feet of walking speed?
Yeah.
Let's get into some questions.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to roll initiative? I am not going to roll initiative because I hate asking myself questions. It just feels so fucking awkward. So I'm going to go last.
Right. I see. I didn't know that was ever an option.
Yeah. Yeah. I got an 8.
See? Well, DM1 is looking up.
I know. Well, I got a 6, so.
Fuck.
I also hate going first.
All right. So do you have any role-playing suggestions for this then?
All right, for the clay golems. I do find it's interesting that these ones specifically are connected to a holy creator. So I would definitely lean into that. And I think with golems, it's not just playing the golem itself, but role-playing the creator. So I think you could definitely have a creator also very well fleshed out, and their connection. So I think role playing what you would see if you don't just run in and attack this thing, as we tend to do as players, is the connection between the creator and the golem, and how they act together. Is this a father-child sort of connection? Is it master-slave? Is it a friendship? How does that work? So that's sort of what I would lead into.
That is very clever. I did not think about doing that. I will. So it has some crazy abilities. But then I'm also just confused why perhaps, it doesn't have, what's with the acid part as well? Why is acid important, or gives it the acid absorption and it's immune to acid, but it's clay?
Yeah.
Where's the connection there?
I had the same thought. Why? You would think acid would deteriorate the clay, but
Something.
Maybe clay is found in acidic soil.
Maybe.
Maybe.
We will be corrected if not.
Yeah. Reddit, let us know.
But I kind of like tying it more just to water, like adding a water element to where you find it. Like perhaps it is stuck somewhere and you need to try, and like you know that there's water that's important to try and like free it. Like say you're trying to free this or something. But you find out it's a clay golem, and so it's like, okay, and you need to like add water to an area to like loosen the clay so that the clay golem can come out and like do what it's going to do for you. I would kind of add some sort of flavor that way, in how you want to have it discovered. Because I don't know, you can't do much role playing in terms of when it's in an encounter, because it can't speak and it doesn't have any intelligence or wisdom or anything, or charisma.
And a charisma of 1.
Yeah. So it's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
so role playing is a little more challenging with golems.
Yeah, I think it would be more so in its movements and actions.
Yeah.
How are you gonna
And
mime
then like
it
that.
to the players?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, for me, I cheated, I guess, because I was like, how do you role play a golem, right? Like they're dumb. So I was thinking, like, maybe what if someone's soul is tricked into inhabiting a clay golem, right? Like, so now it's stuck in there. You got to find the body it came from. If you want to play into the creator sort of thing, maybe this is a divine punishment, right? Like the creator created the golem, misused it, and now the divinity or whatever it worships is mad. So as punishment, it made it switch places with the golem. So now it's in the golem's body and the golem is now in his body. And you got to figure out what you're doing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
How about exploration?
I mean, like you said, they can follow directions, but they also can do it too literally or make mistakes. So I think like your clues that you're going to come up on are going to be its mistakes. Like you're going to find broken things. You're going to find that forest that's been completely cut down. And then they just didn't know what to do with all of that. So there's just piles of wood that they like don't have a use for yet, there's going to be those mistakes. There's going to be like a building that's built but like crooked.
Yeah.
So you would walking into this town or this, if it's just a house on the outskirts of town, like you're going to find these like weird things that like are normal to have but are not right.
Yeah, like a child's drawing of a house kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I think that could be a lot of fun if you're also trying to examine like the relationship between the golem and his creator, right? Like now I'm just imagining like a bumbling idiot, like a Three Stooges kind of relationship for the golem and the person who created it.
Well, and the interesting thing is about golems is like what happens when they are given a task or something they're supposed to do, and then their creator dies. And so there's no way to redirect it from what it's doing. So it basically has to be destroyed some way, somehow, which many of them are extra hard to do. And so it popped in my mind, instead of it chopping wood, is like if it's connected to a like religious like building or a religious like community that it was tasked to like, and I like it having being tasked, I don't know, with the clay golem. It's like it's not going to be a guardian, it's going to, or a protector, it's going to be tasked with something. What if it
this
was
is
like
the one folding our laundry?
Yeah. Yes, and it has to wear gloves so it doesn't get
It's
mud
gonna get it
over
all
everything.
muddy. Yeah.
But I could see it like being tasked to like say dig graves, and like then time lapses and it's not told not to stop, and so like you go out behind like the church or place of worship, and there's just like a sea of open graves, and people going by are like, what the hell is happening? Are they expecting like an apocalypse? What's going on? And then you see this like just this large creature in the background just like digging away. Oh man. Yeah, like those would be the more kind of like humorous like clues that there's something weird going on. It's like, why is there like 1,000 logs piled by this place and the forest is gone? It's like, why are there thousands of open graves dug?
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, I like that. Yeah, I was trying to think like, how are you going to hint at it? But I mean, it doesn't really do anything for itself, so you'd probably be more hinting towards the creator of it. So I was just thinking like, maybe before you run into it, you find like a little clay sculpture that's just a figurine, like a mock-up kind of thing, or a surgical table with loose bits of clay on it, or like a receipt for a subscription to Clay Monthly or something, or like someone robbed a kindergarten and took all their clay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's pottery class. They've been going to pottery class down the road.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. All right. How about combat inspirations?
I mean, they have a lot of those like weird abilities. I mean, definitely the hardest one as a player is that life drain. So like as the DM leaning into that. But with their like you have to get close enough to them because they only have slam, they don't have like a ranged attack at all. So you do have to figure out that part of the puzzle as they only have 20-foot movement to get them close enough to the party to get that slam attack. But with their berserk and crushing items around them, that could give you your difficult terrain. If they start smashing everything around the party and closing them in, that could be a way to sort of make the battlefield smaller there, or like crushing stuff in front of a door so they can't get out of it easily,
Mhm.
All right.
things like that.
Or it's close to an item that the party has to protect, so they kind of have to get in there to stop it before it fucking ruins everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's clever because whether it realizes that tactic or not, if it's closing the area that you can work in and you do have to get up to it and try and hit it, then when it goes berserk, which I mean, it's pretty high odds. It's only a D6 that needs to be rolled to get
Mhm.
it to go berserk. Then like if it's already created a small environment and it starts just smashing anything, more than likely it's going to be one of the players that's getting smashed. And with the slam and that life drain, like if it's your barbarian that's getting hit first or your fighter, like it's not going to take that many rounds for it to really do some damage. And then if you get haste in there, it gets slam attack as a bonus action. So it can essentially like make 3 slam attacks in one round. And so while it seems weird and uninteresting, like that could seriously make a TPK scenario happen pretty quickly if the DM's rolling well for the recharge and the berserk.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of damage to deal in a single round. And if you got one of like the squishy characters, you kill them pretty quick.
Yeah, especially if they can't get away, like Pep said.
Yeah, I was trying to think of other ways you could kind of make up for the 20 feet of movement speed. And while it wouldn't really fit thematically, I think it could make a really great battle if you teamed it up with a copper dragon, because the copper dragon has the acid breath and then it also has like the slow breath. So you can slow the party down, allowing it more time for the golem to catch up. But I mean, I think you could also, because I was trying to think of it like other ways you could use the acid absorption to your benefit, because honestly there's not a lot of acid dealing damage spells in D&D. I think there's like 10. So if you have like an area of effect, right, where you're dealing a bunch of acid damage, you're healing your golem at the same time as you're damaging the party. So you can slow it down, like if you have whatever a line of acid breath like the copper dragon does, you hit a party member and you're also healing the dragon or healing your golem and hitting a party member at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But-
clever. And
Mhm.
if you wanted to spin it so that even the creator was some type of wizard or sorcerer or something that had spell casting ability, and then they would just stack, like as a DM, you would stack it with all of the possible acid damage spells. And then you just have you'd have more of like that could be like a one shot, like final battle kind of scenario as well. It's like defeat the henchman and then defeat the creator. And you could even
Mhm.
have multiple clay golems too, depending on the level of the party.
Yeah, and that's a rough henchman to get through, as it's lessening your max HP
Mm-hmm.
to get there. Like by the time you get to the boss of it, you're at half HP at least. Like, and you cannot be healed from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, if you do it to your tank or something before you go into that last battle, and then you can't even heal him.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's great. I like that.
Yeah.
All
Also
right.
points to Kyle for adding a dragon into the episode.
Just for you.
Very clever.
Yeah.
All right. Peps, I guess you're on Flesh Golem.
Flesh golems. All right. So a flesh golem is a brooding humanoid body pieced together with spare body parts and imbued with strength. It does have its own ability to think, but it's no more intelligent than like a small child. Lightning is what brings these creatures to life and gives them strength, and enchantments strengthen their skin against attacks and magic. They move like they don't have complete control of their bodies. I would imagine this is because they are pieced together from so many different bodies. Sometimes they howl out in outrage of its life that it has been forced into. Their spirit may become so infuriated that they break free of their creator's control and going on a rampage, again, like the clay one, until calmed, destroyed, or completely healed. Getting into their stats, only having an AC of 9, you would think they'd be super easy to damage, and you'd be wrong. Like the clay one, they have a lot of immunities. Their damage immunities are to lightning, poison, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical weapons that aren't adamantine. Adamantine? We'll figure that word out eventually. They're also immune to the conditions of charmed, exhausted, frightened, paralyzed, petrified, and poisoned. A lot of their abilities will sound very similar or the same to the clay ones. They are immune to any spell that would alter their form, have magical resistance, and have advantage on saving throws against spells and other magic effects. Instead of acid, they absorb lightning. If hit with lightning damage, it takes no damage and instead gains HP equal to the damage dealt. Its attack, which it gets 2 slam attacks per turn, are considered magical, and it can also go berserk if it starts its turn with fewer than 40 hit points. So I believe the clay you said was 60, so this is less than that. You have to roll that d6, and on a 6 it goes berserk. Same thing, it will smash whoever's closest to it or whatever object's closest to it. If the creator is within 60 feet, they can try to calm the golem, which takes a persuasion roll. If the golem goes under 40 hit points again, it may again go berserk. Now, I do have a small bit of good news. They don't like fire. If they take fire damage, they get disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks until the end of its next turn. So that's at least some bit of hope for you players.
Slim.
Yeah.
It's interesting that the Golem's creator can get like it under control by just speaking firmly to it instead of having to heal it all the way.
Mm-hmm.
Like I imagine kind of like a dog, right? The creator's hitting it with a newspaper, like bad, no.
Yeah. And I wonder if it's because there was like potentially a bigger investment in it. Like it feels like it's connected more to it in like, I don't want you to die, so please stop like destroying everything and going crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it like that. I always thought of these kind of like I don't know, gross and hideous and terrible. Like
Mhm.
you had to be a pretty messed up person to want to create a flesh golem
Yeah.
at the first, but yeah, it can make a good sympathetic character.
Yeah, it definitely looks like it should be one of our undead creatures. Like in one of our episodes. Like I feel like I should be talking about body horror. Like
Yeah.
No, sorry, you guys don't get all the fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we will get into like that. Just even sparked some more ideas.
All right. Yeah, so I guess let's get into some questions then.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to roll initiative again, or do you want to keep the same one?
Well, I just rolled an 11.
Rolling 3.
Same one.
I'm not getting double digits today, apparently.
Man, I picked this dice because it usually rolls low for me.
Well, all right. So perhaps what are your role-playing inspirations for us?
I think whereas with the clay ones, they are much more task oriented. I would play these ones much more childlike. And even, I mean, they are huge. They're, these massive creations. But they have that very childlike understanding of the world. So they will be trying to understand things, trying to figure things out, breaking things along the way. Their berserk is almost like a temper tantrum, but like on a much more massive, scarier level. But it has that sort of feel of like, this is a child who doesn't understand why it was created, what to do, what things are scary to it. So that not understanding creates that anger and fear.
Cool. I like that. Would you play it as with the ability to kind of evolve over time, right? Like if you were maybe using it as a recurring character, would it slowly learn like a child does, right? You might have a better grasp of vocabulary the next time you run into it or something like that.
I think that I would. And I'll sort of explain why in the next section I have to talk about.
All right. Don't want to give us all your ideas right away. All right, Casey, what about you?
I would like to maybe connect different things and their abilities together and to add a bit more sympathy. I'm going the sympathetic route. Like if you discover that it has that aversion to fire, not only does it, give that disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks, but I would also have it like cower and potentially move away. And like, so it doesn't care about attacks of opportunity. It's moving back towards either its home or like where its creator is. And it's kind of like, ow, ah, and like, so it like has that child like, help me, and like will go back to like its parent.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And with the berserk too, I don't know. I feel like it's like as a DM, you could even tell it's like, okay, if it takes more than 3 bouts of like fire damage, it like triggers an advantage roll on berserk happening, because it's like the more it gets hit with fire, the more likely it's just going to trigger berserk. So I would like to connect those things and just add a little bit more in how you can role play like a combat scenario with it, since it can't talk, or you can't say like the same thing. You can't really convince it otherwise or do anything that way with it.
Yeah. Yeah, like it has like an emotional outburst kind of thing, right? It doesn't know how to convey its emotions or its thoughts, right? Like kind of like children cry apparently because they know what they want but they can't express it, so it becomes like a sort of frustration kind of thing.
Yeah.
Cool. I like that a lot. Yeah, I was trying to think of this one. I would definitely play. How does it lead back to its creator, right? Like, why did the creator make this thing in the first place, right? Like, I kind of imagine someone really emotionally messed up, right? Like maybe they lost a loved one and they're just traumatized, and they want to bring them back, and this is maybe the only way they know how, right? And they're just wrong. It's wrong, and now that they've done it, they know it's wrong, but it also still doesn't feel right killing it now that it's given it life again.
Yeah, it's like
Mhm.
definitely necromancy vibes in this because you're searching for like dead flesh, or you're bringing people in to kill them to use their body parts. So
Mhm.
total necromancer energy, which I love.
Yeah.
But like maybe less evil than a necromancer, right? Or
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
There's a
Or
lot of fun ways you can do it. It's a very versatile kind of thing.
Yeah. And like it could be like with good intentions, and then as like they slowly go mad as they're trying to create this thing to replace, whatever they have lost, whoever they have lost. And it slowly, they have to start doing evil things in order to figure this out, like kill people, sacrifice people, probably a lot of people before it actually worked. And so it
Yeah.
slowly like drove them to be evil, which is also, like traumatic backstory.
Yeah. We love a
Road
traumatic
to hell.
backstory.
Yeah. The road to hell is paved with good intentions kind of vibe.
Totally.
All right, cool. All right. How about exploration?
I
How are you gonna
think,
hint?
yeah, I think like you're going to come across a town that has like rumors of a grave robber. Like they have this problem of there's this grave robber, and like we keep finding all of our loved ones dug up, and maybe hire your adventurers to like guard the cemetery or figure out like what is happening and who is stealing our loved ones. I think that would be, and you might just think, oh, it's somebody stealing their belongings in there, and then you come across one of these.
Yeah.
It's not just your common thief.
Yeah, I love that. And even building on that further, say you are just passing through like a smaller like community outside of a bigger community, and you go to the tavern as you do, and you hear like rumors about some hermit who like, oh, like we haven't seen them in like 20 years ever since their partner died, or like there maybe some connection to lightning or fire or some sort of like traumatic history. And then you have also rumors of like, yeah, if you get like their property is all like fenced off so you can't get in, but people have been known to like walk by there and be tempted, like dared to go in, and then they hear like lots of yelling and screaming that sounds like a creature of some kind that might be like trapped in there. And it's all this like crazy like hermit person creating this creature to like replace what they lost, and trying to also control it and contain it. But again, once it was made, it like was this monster. And so that's why it's like they were then trying to protect the community around by containing it in and just living with it, because they also just couldn't bring themselves to kill it again. And so there's this whole story of like, do you kill it to let him free, or what do you do with it? Do you how do you manage that? It could be a whole side quest just while you're traveling through town that you take or you don't.
Yeah. Oh, I like that a lot. Trapped with this thing that is just giving you massive sense of guilt.
Yep.
Oh, that's a cool idea. I was thinking, what if maybe these flesh golems are just the first attempt, right? So you find a really kind of basic one, right? Like the stitching is really rough, it doesn't look that great. And then the next time it's a little more refined, right? The body parts fit a little bit together. So it's all kind of, you're following this trail of bodies. Maybe it's like a whole set of towns that are having a grave robber come through, and this grave robber is moving with each town to avoid being found out. But your party is following the trail of breadcrumbs to some ultimate evil, nefarious, or guilt-ridden attempt, right? Like they want to resurrect their wife, but they want to make sure that they know how to do it well.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. They're refining their skill before they try the real thing. And like
Yeah.
their partner is, you know, in a tomb or under the house or something that they're like protecting as well. Mm.
Creepy.
Yeah, and also because their AC is so low, and I feel like we've kind of fleshed out the connection to the creator very like quite a bit. They would never be really, really far away from their creator, like unless like I feel like the ones that they truly care about, you would be very close to their origin location when you actually encounter them.
Mhm.
I like that. Like a child chasing their parent. Papa.
Yeah.
Papa.
Don't leave me.
Yeah. I just want a hug. All right. How about combat inspirations? How we're gonna use it.
Yeah, so like they don't have as much as the clay golem did with like they don't have the life drain, they don't have the haste. So there's not as much to like play off of as the DM and use. They just really have their multi-slam attack. But they do have all of those immunities. And they do have that strengthened skin. And I think because of their stronger connection with their creator, they would be very protective of their creator.
Mhm.
So these are like, if you go to attack the creator at all, these are coming at like it's coming after you. It will stand in front of that. It will take that hit. You are not going to get to the creator unless you go through this first.
Okay. So like not outwardly aggressive, just
Mhm.
reactive kind of thing.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you like, it's not going to just automatically hit you unless you come in with fire or something that it's like scared of. If you show aggression to its creator, then it will, or itself. I think it would protect itself if you attacked it.
Yeah. But it's
you know,
not gonna
first.
start the combat.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to start the combat, but I think it is going to definitely step up and, you know, and do what it can. I don't think it's going to back down at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's more like it's going to reactive, like it's not going to hunt anything. It's not going to have strategy or tactics. It's going to be reactive.
Mhm.
Like it's going to just do its thing like a child until something comes in and attempts to change that, like either attack it or start attacking like the creator. Then it's going to start responding and instinctively protecting itself or its creator. Which makes it like easy for a DM, like from a DM's perspective, to manage the combat because it doesn't have a lot going for it, which is why you really, if you want to make it more interesting, try and combine like from its perspective, what would it do if it received lightning damage? Like how do you portray that in a combat scenario? Do you see it suddenly like it seemingly grows or it stands taller and then seems more aggressive because it's just gained hit points back? And with fire, does it cower? And like I think it wouldn't just, you know, take the fire damage and then like go back to what it's doing. Like you want to use that in the combat to just make it a little bit more interesting because all it does is swing and try and slam attack, and that's all. So
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So you want to make it a more, I think of the word, not like thought provoking, but you know, you want to make your players strategize a little more. Or
yeah, like try like if as a DM you can kind of portray its reactions to what you're doing. If the players are insightful, they can kind of create their own tactics around that and maybe control it in that way, versus just trying to go up and keep hitting it.
give it a little more humanity, I guess it would be a better way of putting it.
Yeah, like it's an emotional fighter.
Yeah. Yeah,
All
like
right.
the clay golem's just made out of clay. Like this is built out of people, you know, so
Yeah.
it definitely has that more human side of it.
Yeah, perhaps.
Interesting. It's a cool idea. Very cool idea. I wonder if too, like, where does it get its spark of life? Is it influenced by the people that it is made out of? Right? Like, does it kind of you have instincts related to it. Yeah.
I like it. I
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
adding that in. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Great ideas. Right. Frankenstein.
All right, Frankenstein. So now that we've talked about flesh golems, I'd argue that the most well-known golem in entertainment, specifically flesh golem, is Frankenstein, or more accurately, his monster. Now, in my research, I've found two different stories of this duo. The first is the novel written in the early 1800s, where Victor Frankenstein creates this 8-foot tall creature and brings it to life. The sight of this hideous being causes him to run away. Shortly after, he falls ill and takes several months to recover. He then learns about the death of his brother and travels home. Now, from the monster's point of view, his creator abandoned him, leaving him to learn absolutely everything on his own. Everyone he comes into contact with views him as a monster and chases him off. He eventually hides and finds a family he watches and learns from, but eventually they chase him off too. So he goes to find his creator and instead finds his little brother and, out of anger, kills him. He eventually kills everyone close to Victor, and the two begin this long chase that leads them to the Arctic, where Victor eventually dies. That is a very brief summary of this novel, and there's much more to it than that.
Full of tragedy.
Full of tragedy. Yeah, I did not know that story when I started researching this. Now, in the 1930s movie, we see a different version of the story, and this is the one that I more so know in my head of Frankenstein. The doctor's name is now Henry Frankenstein, and once he creates the monster, he does not run away. He starts to sort of show the monster things until the monster sees fire and gets scared. Henry takes this as rage and locks the monster away. The monster starts to kill as it is scared and angry in a locked room, eventually escaping and killing more, mostly people close to Henry, until he is hunted down by a mob of villagers and trapped inside of a burning building.
I gotta say, Henry is a way worse name for a villain than Victor.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's eventually trapped inside of a burning building. There are many other versions of this story, such as the Van Helsing movie. You could say, like in Buffy, there's a couple different versions of like a flesh golem that you see. I would even say the new movie Poor Things takes some inspiration from this. I won't give too many spoilers away because that is newer and not from the 1800s. So sorry for spoiling that book. To anyone who hasn't read it yet. But these, I think, are the two main tellings of Frankenstein and his monster. I will also note that in my research, I did come across a Frankenstein playable race on D&D Wiki. So if this is something you would like to explore as a player, there is resources out there to work off of.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in Frankenstein, the creator of the golem is as important as the monster itself. And really, in the Frankenstein stories, it's the relationship between the two. So is this something that you would apply to D&D logic, generally speaking? I feel like we've all already answered that question as a yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I definitely, and I think it even could go more than the golems, like anything creating something, like your zombies and your animated skeletons and like all the things we get into in our undead episodes that are brought back to life, your mummies and that kind of thing. I would definitely look deeper into who is creating this and what is their connection.
Yeah, there's a little more to do in terms of the shaping it as opposed to just like raising the dead, right? Like you say, a spell, right? But this is personal. Like you got to put your hands into it. It takes time. You're crafting it. It's it's like it's an emotional thing to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. And it just makes it more interesting and just presents that like empathetic side. It will like certain players in the party will connect with that part of the story versus just let's just go kill it.
Yeah.
Like they'll try and be
Yeah.
like, wait, no. It's like whenever a DM can cause that kind of conflict between the party members, that's
Yeah.
always fun.
Yeah.
That moral like questioning of what do we do?
Yeah.
I would also say this is where, like Kyle had asked about if you would eventually have them learning, in the book version, that is very much a theme in it, is that the monster watches this family for like, I found conflicting amounts of time in that. So I don't know exactly, but for months to a year, watches this family, learns how to speak, learns how to read, and finds papers in its jacket that lead it to where Victor lives. So like without that, the monster wouldn't be able to do what he did. So I would definitely sort of add that into, if this is going to be a reoccurring character, that it gets a little smarter as time
Yeah.
goes on.
Ooh, what if you accidentally or inadvertently killed its master, and like months and months later you realize that this monster has been following you
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh.
trying to, like, it's learning, it's evolving, and it's figured out how to track you, and then like so long later you are suddenly like attacked by this flesh golem creature that can
Yeah.
speak to you. Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh
And
man,
it's like
that's a great
slowly
idea.
picking off that not your party, but the things close to your party, your NPCs, your familiars, your pets.
Ooh, yep.
Oh man, that's
Yeah,
a great
it's
idea.
the consequences of rash decisions the party members make sometimes come
Yeah.
back
I mean,
to
even just like the tavern keeper, it saw you talking to, you know,
Yeah.
and you go back to your room that night and something happened.
yeah.
Oh man, and then the final battle is it learned everything that you do. So it's like picked up all your skills. It's learned how to use magic from your party. So you
Yeah.
can throw everything that they've been using the whole time right back at them.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. All right. Stone Golem. Casey. I almost called you Cassie again. I'm sorry. It's gonna slip out, I swear to God.
You are forgiven. Okay, so stone golems. As you can anticipate, they can take any form the sculptor wishes to chisel and cut out of stone. They typically look humanoid, but like other golems, are nearly impervious to spells and regular weapons, and have been said to cause a sense of time slowing down for those who fight them, which hints at maybe one key ability it has that I'll get into in a bit. So stone golems are sitting at a CR of 10. This large construct will be more challenging to hit with an AC of 17. You are hitting stone. And it has a very long list of immunities, which I will go as again. There's immunity to poison, psychic damage, and bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks not made with adamantine weapons. They are also immune to being charmed, exhausted, frightened, paralyzed, petrified, and poisoned. And they have the immutable form, which the other two also had that we talked about, I believe. Yes. Where they are immune to any spell or effect that could alter their form. So think like polymorph, enlarge, reduce. They have magic resistance, so they have advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects, and their own weapon attacks are magical. We've heard this all before. So let's just get into the actions that the stone golem has. It can make 2 slam attacks with a +10 to hit, but only a 5-foot reach, and will deal 3d8 + 6 bludgeoning damage. And on top of that, it has an ability called slow, which is essentially the same as the slow spell with a recharge of 5 and 6. The golem can target 1 or more creatures it can see within 10 feet of it and cause them to make a DC 17 wisdom save. And on a fail, the target cannot use its reactions, speed is halved, and it can make 1 more attack, and it cannot make more than 1 attack on its turn. It can also only take an action or bonus action, not both. And this effect lasts 1 minute. The target can repeat the save at the end of each of its turns to end the effect. So we're on the same trend where the highest stats are strength and con with +6 and +5. Everything else is average or below average. So we're seeing the same kind of trend. It's just a bump up to a CR of 10, and it's going to be way harder to hit. And that is essentially the stone golem.
Okay.
All right.
I think it would have been way better if they switched the slow on the clay golem and the slow on the stone golem with the haste on the clay golem. Like if you flip them around, it would make way more sense if like the clay golem could soften the ground around it to like slow other people down.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, make
And
that
be able to catch
quicksand.
Yeah.
totally.
All right, cool. Let's get into some questions. Do you guys want to roll again?
Sure.
Yeah. I got another 11.
3. I am using many different dice.
Uh,
Mhm, mhm.
All right, Babs, lead us off. What
All
are
right.
your role play inspirations?
So I personally have a deep connection to stone golems. So I will tell you the story of my stone golems, Gary and Garrick, that
Oh,
I
boy.
had in one of my games. So in this game, as a gnome, you were gifted a stone golem. So my golem was Gary, and I spent probably a year and a half in game with Gary, understanding him, figuring out his story. He was my best friend, and he could open up and I could go inside of him and wear him as like a suit, and we could like fight together. And I eventually found out that the way that these golems were made was by another gnome who had a very tragic or unfortunate end of their life. Their soul could be placed into one of these stone golems. So they were then sent as protectors to the other gnomes. So I found out that Gary's family had become very ill and had all died, and he had eventually hung himself. And through our friendship, found love for life again. And eventually he then became, because of our friendship, because he was killed by some acid, became a dryad. Because of our relationship, he stayed, but then died saving me. It was a very tragic session, and I cried a lot.
Oh my god.
It was one of the most, like, Gary dying is one of the most tragic things that I have like come across in any game that I have
Yeah.
played. So like
That
so
was an
I have-
emotional roller coaster.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a very in-depth love for stone golems personally. And it's not necessarily the way that they're written, but with sort of the lore of golems and having a soul put into them, a spirit put into them, to animate them, it does sort of fit with that, how they were. Garrick was one that I sort of adopted because another player died, and so I took on her golem. So I did have a connection with Garrick, but it wasn't as close as Gary and I.
He was
So-
he was
yeah.
known as not Gary for the first while.
So, I do think that you could like play these as friends, as protectors. And even though they can't talk, Gary didn't talk, we still had a very deep connection through the role playing that we did together.
Wait, so how did you find out the whole backstory if you couldn't talk?
I eventually got an ability, we called it touching tips, where I could touch my forehead to other creatures and gain memories or feelings and pass them between the two. So that is
Okay.
how I learned about Gary's backstory, was touching tips with him.
And what class was your character?
I
gnome?
started out as a monk, And then I became part druid when I got Garrick, because Garrick's in the game your golem sort of had the same sort of ability as you did. So Gary was more of a monk. Garrick was from a druid. So in effort to learn more about Garrick, I set on a path to multi-class as a druid, so that I could better understand him and help him through his life now that his, person he was protecting was gone. So I was a multi-class monk druid.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, if you ever wanted inspiration on stone golems, there's a whole whack load.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this is where we move the story into that true protector guardian style golem. Like you might use these to do tasks that are of massive volume. Like if you are building a mansion or a coliseum, perhaps you would create the constructs of stone golems to help you build it. But otherwise, yeah, these are going to be guarding the Colosseum. Like they're going to look like statues at the front, and they're triggered to respond or whatever if you come within certain amount of feet, or they are going to follow around their creator or the masters that they have and protect them. I love using them as like a kind of like a robotic creature that you can actually climb onto or into. That just seems so awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, wearing Gary as like a mech suit was awesome, because I also got to like add his strength modifier to my punches as a monk.
Yeah. Oh my god.
So it was like
good.
mine plus his. Yeah.
Racking people with that.
Oh yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, honestly, dude, mine was kind of along the lines of what you just went over, Peps, but not nearly as creative. Like I looking at like the golem lore where it says, they're infused with a spark of life, but that spark of life is essentially empty, like it's new, right? But stone golems, I imagine they're around for a long time, right? You are using these things to not just protect one person, but entire generations, right? Like you founded a city and you've created stone golems all throughout it to kind of protect it from any attackers that might come in the future. So even if you start with an empty spark of life, does it always stay empty? Are they incapable of learning? Can they grow? Do they take on the characteristics of what's around them, right? Like if you have it guarding some tomb of a mummy lord or something, it's probably not going to change much. But if you have a stone golem that's watching over a city, does it grow with the city? Does it take on characteristics of the people around it, right? Kind of pick up on the ebb and flow of life. And so over centuries, millennia, right? How does it adapt, I guess?
Right. I like that. And like, what if it was tasked to protect like a family line? And so somehow, like in its spirit, it inherently acknowledges when any part of that family line is around. And so it will protect it instinctively. And then that could be a plot hook in that suddenly it starts protecting one of the party members. And it's like, what the hell? It's not attacking you. It's coming up and like, being like a guard. It's like, what is happening? And then you reveal that they're part of like this ancient, royalty line or something. And then it's like, ooh, big reveal. And now you have this stone golem following you around.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, I like the generational or like the long standing, like that's right. They would be around because they're really hard to destroy. So they would be around a really long time. I like that, Kyle.
That's so funny. I'm imagining now like it's kind of like the flesh golem where it's following the party around, but I mean it's a stone golem. How's it hide? So it's just like you see this giant stone golem like peeking around a tree trying to like remain hidden while it's protecting that person. That's great.
Yeah.
That's a funny idea.
Yeah.
Hopeless.
All right. What about exploration ideas?
So I, while Casey was sort of talking, I had the idea of like, you had mentioned like it being part of like a city, right? So these are very strong. They can lift a lot, they can move a lot. I think this is where you will come across pyramids. Who built the pyramids? It was the stone golems.
Aliens. Everybody
who
knows
else
that.
could do it? Like if you do come across, if it is guarding a mummy, it built that pyramid. Like this is the only explanation for how these like big structures were. So it doesn't even have to be a pyramid, but you come across a town or a city that has these structures that don't seem possible. Like the construction of them doesn't seem possible. Who could have moved this and made this? And then it also, after it's built, becomes the protector of it.
That's awesome. I want to do it now.
Yeah. It's almost like a human building a Lego city.
Yeah.
And then like playing with it. Oh, cool. That's a great idea. It's a great idea. Casey?
Yeah, I think that would be a great indicator if you have just like phenomenal architecture that seems impossible. That's a unique thing that maybe your players will pick up on, but maybe it won't be till they actually encounter a stone golem and it's like, oh.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think they are like they're not going to necessarily be apparent because they're going to be stationed in a certain area or a certain place, and that's just what they know and what they do. So I think you will have to seek them out if you're searching for them. I don't think there's something that would, aside from if they are like the family line thing that we were talking about, I don't think they're going to be tasked with like, go find like this thing and they're just off on their own. They're going to be around like a city or around a specific person, and that person is what they're connected to. So yeah, I think that's kind of what they're meant to be.
Yeah, the only thing I can really think of for hinting at it, because I mean I imagine they're kind of almost indistinguishable from regular statues, is if you're, let's say they're guarding a treasure room kind of thing, right? You notice that the entrance or the area around where the entrance to this treasure room is, has these big like fist holes in the walls of like the masonry, or like you can see a giant boot print in the ground of like, and there's a skeleton at the bottom of it because it just stomps somebody into the ground kind of thing. So not so much, you're not hinting at them so much as where they have been, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I could really think of.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
All right. How about combat inspirations?
One of the most fun things with Gary was he could sort of, what is it, meld stone or what, where you could like go into the stone, right? Like he could go into stone. So I would sort of tie that in with they're guarding a place. They're not necessarily going to just be standing at the door, but they might be hiding. They might be like camouflaged with the stone or in the stone. And it's not until you come up, maybe the door's trapped, because of course it is, and you don't like back away, then it comes out. If you get past that trap, then these come out at you. So it would be a surprise that they are even there when you come across it, is how I would play with that.
Yeah, I like that you would still have statues all along the front of the building you're trying to get into, and so the players would think, okay, like, is this gonna come alive and come at me? Probably. And then it doesn't, but the second they like cross the threshold, they just meld out of the wall and like come at you, where it's like, hey.
Right, because like as players, we're on to statues, like we've got our eye on you, statue. Like you might go and like remove the head of a suit of armor or something. Like I know I have done that where I have seen suit of armors. Before I do anything, I'm disassembling it. Like, like it's going away.
Yeah.
Fool me once.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
Thanks, Curse of Strahd.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like otherwise, like this is one that actually doesn't have one of the like absorption abilities where it can regain hit points. It just has a lot of hit points to begin with, and it's harder to hit. But so like you can just like chip away, literally chisel away at its like hit points to destroy it. But then it does have that slow ability, which could deplete your heavy hitters. Like if it takes out your barbarian and your fighter or your monk with the slow, then I mean your other more squishy characters are going to be kind of just skirting around trying to do something. But yeah, so like an encounter and combat with them will take some time if you are really trying to destroy this thing, like many around.
Okay, I like the idea of, or perhaps like you said, we're kind of on to statues, but having them mixed into just regular statues, right? Like you have to walk down this long tunnel with a bunch of like niches in the walls, and there's like 100 statues, but only 4 of them are actually golems. So, lulling them into that false sense of security. I also noticed that like in the lore, it says they can be shaped like anything. They don't have to be shaped like humans. Like it could look like a giant cat or look like a dragon or anything kind of thing.
Yeah, like a gargoyle even.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So trying to figure out, I don't know how I would play it out, but it would be fun if, you have all these statues and the players have to figure out which one are the golems, because the golems are like, let's say darkness drops so nobody can see, and then that's when they get hit, and then the darkness disappears and then all the statues are still in the exact same place. So where did it come from? How did they get out? Like if they're in a trap room or something. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Adding more tactics to it, like it.
All right. Iron Golem.
Saving the mightiest for last. All right, let's get into the Iron Golem. Made of heavy metal, they typically look like suits of armor. Don't have to look like suits of armor, but understandably are immensely heavy. So much so their walk is like an earthquake. It carries an actual blade weapon to extend its reach and has poisonous breath. And this is a result of rare tinctures and admixtures added during its creation. They are truly nearly invulnerable, only susceptible to the magical weapons and adamantine weapons. So we're jumping all the way to CR 16 with the Iron Golem, with over 200 hit points and an AC of 20. So by far the highest in all the golems we discussed today. They are immune to fire, poison, and psychic damage, plus bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks not made with adamantine weapons. They are immune to charmed, exhaustion, frightened, paralyzed, petrified, and poisoned conditions. So you'll notice these are all the same as most of the stone golems, except the addition of same as most of the golems we talked about today, except for the addition of the fire immunity. In fact, these ones have fire absorption. So whenever the Iron Golem is subjected to fire damage, it takes no damage and regains hit points equal to the fire damage dealt. It too has the immutable form, magic resistance, and its attacks are magical. In fact, it can make 2 attacks with either a slam attack. Here it is a plus 13 to hit, 5-foot reach, and a 3d8 plus 7 bludgeoning damage. But then it has a magical sword that it can attack with for still a plus 13 to hit, but a 10-foot reach, and it does 3d10 plus 7 slashing damage. Finally, the Iron Golem can use poison breath. It has a recharge of 6. The golem exhales a gaseous cloud of poison in a 15-foot cone. Each creature in that area must make a DC 19 con save or take 10d8 poison damage on a fail and half as much on a success.
Thanks.
So that is rough.
Yeah.
But that's it. Very, very similar in that base structure and style of the stat block, with all the other golems we talked about. But now we just have that poison breath, an actual weapon on top of the slam attack, and the fire absorption.
All right, great. Let's get into some questions. Casey, do you want to roll a 3 again? Perhaps an 11?
Sure.
We'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
I did roll another 11.
I rolled 11 too.
Roll off. I rolled a 1 that time.
Oh.
The streak ended. I rolled a 13.
I mean, it was half of an 11. So
Actually, you know what's funny is both those numbers together make an 11 and a 3.
Oh my God.
All right, Casey, lead us off with your role play.
Okay, so these truly, like, they carry a weapon. They are not going to do tasks. They're just not. That's a waste if you make them do tasks. They are truly going to be your extremely intimidating and strong, like, force that you must get through to either get to an area into a building or like protecting somebody that's very important to the whole thing. So again, there's no negotiating, there is no style of interacting because they still can't speak. We didn't get that advantage with going this high in CR or this anything. So I think you are maybe going to get less insight in this and that. Like, I feel like these are soldiers more. They're like, they were forged to have one purpose and just be this strong barrier. So I kind of see them as, you know, if there's a whole wall of them lining the front gates of like a region that you need to get into, they were forged for that purpose only. So they're not going to have much more than that, in my opinion. They're going to be the literal, we need to somehow destroy this or get around it to stop it. And then it might be just following you till it kills you, but I don't know.
yeah, I very much got the soldier feel for it too. And I was thinking about like what would create an iron golem, you know, like we have with the flesh ones, it's probably some sort of scientisty guy. With the clay ones, it was more of a holy person. So what would take iron and make something out of it? And I think that would be some sort of artificer, that would be some sort of like gnome tinkerer. So it could even be like, gnomes are a very secret people. Like, you don't just happen upon a gnome village. And I think that they like would build these to protect their area. Like if it is like a gnome village that has come under attack or has, you know, seen people come in and destroy their things, and that's why they're in hiding, they would build these to protect their city. And so I think like I would play around with that, the whole environment, and them just being that soldier for these tinkerers, and what that would look like. And it's, you know, not just because I love gnomes so much.
We've gathered that.
the character in that tragic stone golem story was a gnome.
Yeah, for me, I also see the soldier aspect, but one of the main difference I see between this one and all the other ones is the other ones are defensive. This one is offensive. Like this one, you build a bunch of them to go destroy something. Like you are going to use them as a frontline fighter. Thinking of who might be building these, I could see fire giants doing it as well. Just warlike people, or you know, someone that's had an army devastated, and so this is their answer. This is their way of repopulating an army kind of thing.
I would even say like dwarves would fall under with their like
Yeah.
forging of things.
Yeah, dwarves would work too.
Totally.
How about exploration?
Yeah, that just sparked like a bunch of inspo because like it could be something unexpected you come across when you're trying to go into the mines or something because you need to get something from the dwarves. And then potentially you realize that the dwarves have been enslaved or controlled by another evil creature, and they have been like forced into forging iron golems instead of what they were doing. And so now they're just this like workforce for creating these iron golems for this evil creature. And you're just like now trying to figure out how to destroy the evil creature, but there's all these iron golems you have to deal with as well.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I think
that's cool.
that would work very well in like an Underdark setting.
Yeah.
Yeah, with like the dwarves of the Underdark and you know how they are set to work for like others and like I think an underground setting having these mixed in with them as protectors of that area I think would be, or just like the soldiers of that area and going in and burning down the other, you know, settlements and people of the like that's how they get captured and that is
Totally.
yeah.
That's a
And
great
I like
ideas.
what you said, Kyle, about it being these are probably the ones that are going to be the aggressors. Like they are going to move in. They're not going to be reactive. They lots of times will be tasked with infiltrating. And so, and to lean into like their heaviness and that creating that like heavy rumbling step. If you did that underground, you have the long tunnel and you just hear this rumbling sound and you can't figure out what it is, but it's an army of iron golems, or depending on the size of and level of the party, it's like a couple iron golems, but it's their heavy footsteps that's echoing down the tunnel. Ooh.
Well, if you had a whole army of them moving, that would potentially cause like earthquakes above ground.
Yeah.
Totally.
Oh,
so you might not even
cool.
be down there with them yet when you first get the hint of them. Like all of a
Yes.
sudden the town around it starts to shake.
Yeah. And the people don't know why, like they're suddenly like there's this rumble and there's earthquakes happening. It hasn't happened before. Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So now that you guys were talking about the Underdark and all that stuff, not just thinking about who would make them, but who they would be made to fight against. Because if you wanted to war with Illithids, this is the one you want to use. They're immune to charmed, frightened, and psychic damage, right?
Mhm.
They're the perfect warriors
Totally.
to fight the Illithids or any sort of psychic monster.
Yeah.
That's a very
Abolus,
good
fighting
point.
Abolus too. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
I like it.
All right. What about combat tactics? What you got, Casey?
Well, this is where it gets way more fun. You got slam attack, of course. You've got a sword attack that has the 10-foot reach, and you have a AoE effect with the breath weapon of poison. Which I also love is when you talked about like the gnome tinkering or artificer, like it actually says in the book that, you know, the poison breath is due to like tinctures or mixtures that were used to like forge and fuse the iron golem together. And so that totally is in alignment with that. It's like, in their like mad science lab, you know, they combined the right things so that, you know, they could fuse the connections of the iron together and, you know, create like glowing eyes of a certain color, stuff like that. So I don't know. I think it could be even the scenario of I can't think of the word now because my brain, like where the gnome is controlling what the iron golem is doing. So it's like sitting up in a like thing and like controlling it.
Yeah.
It's like it's not in it, but it's like up on a like on a cliff edge or something watching and able to control what it does, and then it like sets off the poison breath. And so you like find that out after the fact that it was being controlled by this thing. You would combat it just like the stat block, but it's like that connection in why it has these extra abilities compared to other golems is because of like that history of the creator, and maybe it has that big of a connection where it's like, this is my fighter, so I can just stay cozy and comfy up here, and it goes and does what I want it to do.
Yeah.
Way more fun.
What's that movie where it was essentially Rock'em Sock'em Robots? They had their like iron
Pacific Rim?
where they're like punching on the side, and it's like the people actually punching, and then the golem, like the monster doing it, or the golem doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pacific Rim?
That's what I don't probably. We'll say that's correct.
We believe you.
All right.
We're gonna take your word for it. I just remember the scene of them like standing on the side of the rink, like hitting, and it actually being their golems doing it. And that's what like just sort of popped in my head, is there's like a gnome or a dwarf like way up on a like ledge and just like doing the moves.
Yeah, because it's more of that, maybe slightly more of a mechanical feel in this, like, and that's why I think you can add that there is that poison breath. Like, it's a bit more, maybe more constructy, like mechanically, than like the stone, clay, or flesh golems. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely like, I wouldn't just have one. I'd have an army. I definitely like, that if you come across one, you're fucked. But if you come across an army, like, you're super fucked.
Run away.
Yeah.
It's like a cataclysm, right? Just a bunch of them, especially if they lost their creators and they're just running amok.
Oh man.
Cool. Yeah. I don't really have any combat inspirations. They are pretty simple, right? They're just gonna go in, they're gonna rely on their immunities and hit. Whack.
They're not gonna retreat. They're just going to swing away until they destroy everything that's combative.
Yeah. They don't necessarily care if they go down, I think. Like, there's another one behind them.
And with over 200 hit points and a 20 AC, it's gonna take a while. Even if there's just one.
Do you guys have any final thoughts on these golems that we've covered today?
Well, I think, especially with Peps's like amazing inspo story, real life inspo story in a campaign. I will definitely keep them in mind more for even just like a side quest, or like a little nugget for the players to either grab onto or not, and like add them in, because they aren't really tied to a specific location, like in a world, or you must be in this certain even environmental condition for them to show up. So I think they're pretty versatile, and it's like, right, they could be used.
Yeah. I think like at first glance they seem pretty simple, like, all right, it's just a golem. But like the more you dig into them, I think there's a lot there that you could play around with. And I like that each of them are like, they have a lot of the same base, stats and abilities, but they're all very different at the same time.
Yeah. I'll be honest, when I first started doing this, I didn't see much, I guess, potential for really involved stories, or they seemed really straightforward, and this has kind of showed me that there is a lot more nuance to them, and potential, and ability to make a compelling character out of one of these, or at least the story around them. So
yeah, because when you might not get much out of them, you can bring in that creator story for sure.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. Well, it is almost time to take a long rest, but before we do, let's all gather around to enjoy a nice warm info break.
If you've been inspired by the conversation in this episode, please feel free to reach out and share your creativity and ideas with us and the rest of the community. You can reach us on Facebook and Instagram, or on our subreddit r/It's a Mimic. Also, if you're feeling particularly generous, please follow and subscribe and leave us positive reviews, likes, and comments. Engagements like that help us pop up on search engines and keep this show running.
So, thematically, which is your favorite kind of golem that we've covered?
I'll go first this time since it's not me
Okay.
asking questions.
Yeah.
I gotta say the flesh golem.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. There's a lot of ways you can go with it. So
Mhm.
it's really fun.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I have a very deep personal connection with the stone golem. But I know, like, based on what is in the book, it's not necessarily as deep as mine went. So as written, as we've covered, I would also say the flesh golem. I think there's a lot of there, and I think if you are going to use one, definitely do some research on Frankenstein, because there is a lot there and there's a lot of themes that you can really dive into and make your players think about what they're doing.
It's also a great book. It's the first science fiction book ever written.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it started the whole genre.
There you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all for this part of our discussion on Golems in D&D 5th edition. Silver tier patrons and above can look forward to a sequel to this episode on the Patreon later this week. In the meantime, please take a second to engage with a like, follow, comment, and review to help push our engagement. And don't forget to subscribe to find future inspirations for your campaigns.
If you'd like to support us, we have a store with some merch and a donate button on our website at www.itsamimic.com, as well as a Patreon. This episode and others can also be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and most other podcast apps. Thanks for listening to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get.
This has been an It's a Mimic production. Please check the show notes for this episode to see links, time codes, and credits. And don't forget to reach out and share your own inspirations.
I also desperately tried to come up with a cold open, and my brain couldn't do it. So unless you guys can have one off the top of your head, or we can do the technical difficulty as the cold open got us going.
Honestly, I hate... Go ahead.
What? Were you gonna say, honestly, I hate coming up with cold opens?
I absolutely hate it.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
Would you rather, here's a cold open, would you rather
All right.
be DM1 or have a cold open?
DM1, hands down.
I think I would still pick the cold open, but Oh my
I was
God.
just looking at another breakdown. I was like, shit, I'm DM1 on that one.
Yes, on the next one for this one.
Yeah.
I looked at that this morning. I'm like, DM2, yes. Okay, I'm ready when you guys are.
All right.
All right, let's jump into it.
That's so ugly.